recommend that so the signage will be on that outside wall towards the sidewalk, and as a staff, we feel like it would be important to provide some landscaping in front of that sign, to provide sort of almost protection for it, but to kind of beautify that corner as well, so it's not such a stark contrast from the street. Other concerns that that we'll be looking at with the applicant, like I said, looking at additional lighting elements, secondary seating provisions. Is there anything being planned for music? Seeing if there's been a sunshade study to kind of determine how the site will be used throughout the seasons. And then plant sizes of planting. So we want to ensure that when the plaza actually gets put in, that it's, we're not looking at little stick trees and things that aren't going to provide that shade or provide at least some shade at the get-go. Other concerns that we have, we're just looking at site triangles. As we looked at this as a staff today, so this heavy line here, that's probably the requirement that we would look at in terms of the site triangle. And you can see that none of the plaza really encroaches into that site triangle. If that street gets widened, if and when it gets widened, then that diagonal, the dash diagonal line would come into play, and there's maybe a small portion that would have some concerns. Again, I'm not sure how tall that wall is that's being proposed. Maybe it's 3 feet, maybe it's 2. So those are things that the applicant can likely clear up for us. And then, again, just looking at the signage for the property. In terms of placemaking, we want people to know where they're coming to and say, oh, we're going to X and X spot in Harriman, and people will be able to identify, oh, I know where that's at, I've seen the sign, or I've been to the site, been to the property, and know where that's at. That being said, this is a list of requirement or conditions that we'd be proposing for this. If there's any questions or concerns, I'd be glad to address whatever I can. I know the applicant is here and can probably provide a lot more information. So.
Very good. Any questions for Clint on this presentation? Okay, thank you. We'll let the applicant come forward. If you'd like to provide any, excuse me, any additional information, feel free to do so. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Commission. I want to start by just saying that it's been fantastic to work with staff. Our entire team has just commented about the fact that this has been one of the most partner-oriented, successful, collaborative projects that we've worked on, and just want to extend that thanks to staff in front of you. So thank you very much, guys. Appreciate your work. The only thing I really wanted to do was to make myself available to ask or answer any questions that this commission may have about the plan, about the project. I would like to invite Mr. Layton to join when we get into some of the details about the architectural elements, the plaza, et cetera. But if there's something about the project itself that's on top of mind for the commission that I can answer for you about what our intent is and where we're going with it, anything about that you'd like to know, I'd like to answer for you. Otherwise, I can bring Chris up and we can talk about more of the architectural and design elements that you may have questions about.
Do you have the restaurant name? Can you name the restaurant yet, or still?
We don't have a named tenant yet for the main restaurant in Building 1, but we do have one for Building 2, and one of our tenants is Red Fuego. It's a Mexican restaurant. We also have several restaurant tenant interests, including Yonuts and other kind of bespoke, I would call them more local providers, and that's what we're going after. Our intent is not to have a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Taco Bell. It's to create a very bespoke, different type of clientele for both morning, breakfast, lunch, and dinner type attractions, and we're seeing that interest. Once we get construction going, we anticipate a lot more momentum around that we can start sharing with the council.
Sounds like from the compliment you made early on that these recommendations that the staff have for you, you're all in favor of. No concerns with those as well.
Yeah, as a team, we're completely in favor, and we want to comply. I want to make one comment about that too, that as we started this project, the intent was to create a destination location for the city that is a combined entertainment, restaurant, retail complex, and we wanted people to stay. We want them to feel like that they're in their backyard when they're there to eat or to participate in any of our tenant locations. So I feel like with their support, we've created that in this concept, and we're 100% committed to that long-term vision. as we start to staff or tenant out the facility as well. Any questions at all about the project?
I've got,
ahead, Jackson.
and hopefully this shows how well everything else is going. This is the only thing I see, or don't see, is I just couldn't tell where the dumpsters are located.
Yeah, they're on there, and I can have Chris talk to that when he comes up, the dumpster locations on the plan. Absolutely, they're there, and there's several of them on there around the different building locations. We'll have them pointed out. I wanted to just end with this then, thought from my side. I'll give you an example of the kind of tenants that we're looking for as we phase out the project. That office building location right now, we are in active conversations with DBAT around the potential of building a 2-floor indoor softball batting cage environment with virtual components integrated. That's an example of the type of entertainment complex we're trying to create. And then we're thinking, we had a great conversation with this commission about the idea of maybe converting the 3rd floor or pursuing a 3rd floor with a reception center at the top level. Now, we haven't gotten those plans yet approved. Obviously, we haven't brought that yet in for you to really look at, but I wanted to give you a vision of what we're trying to create, even with that larger office building location. Our preference would be entertainment and restaurant use across the entire project. So that's the vision of it. If you have any questions about that, great. Otherwise, I can turn some time over to Chris to answer some of the architectural questions.
No, I also like the way the the way the buildings are all facing the street, the parking behind it. It's very nice setup. Jackson, or I mean Forrest. Sounds like you had a.
Yeah, so my only comment is, you know, in keeping with the whole vibe of this trying to be a destination place, I think that it'd be really good if you could work with the city on the northeast corner of the retention pond, and actually instead of just doing a plain old retention pond, actually making that part of the amenity. You know, whether it's just a small little park or something, or somewhere, you know, people can hang out. If it's going to be dry 99% of the time, you know, why not just utilize it as part of your destination?
I love that idea personally. Yeah, I really hate the fact that we have that spot there.
Well, I
Personally.
mean, you know,
Necessary evil.
that's
But I
one thing-
understand
that's
the
one thing we
requirement and the
to-
need. Yeah.
Something we need to do better as a city is utilizing those spaces. Even though they're required, we can still utilize them, so.
One idea that but my partners and I had about that space was the idea of an outdoor ropes course.
Right.
Right, or something like that that would create some additional attraction. But for now, we'll bring it back to the group and talk about it. Okay. Thanks, you guys. I'll bring up Chris for any architect. Do you have any questions for him?
I don't know. Is there any questions for the?
I'd like to know a little bit more about the water feature and kind of that corner, what you're
Sounds
envisioning.
good.
The height of the walls, kind of some of that.
Yeah.
How are y'all?
Your name, sorry, please. State
If
your
I
name,
could
please.
just preface my response by saying, you know, the good news is we're working, because we work with so many municipalities, that there's a lot of interaction and feedback and even having an opportunity to have meetings with you all to get your direct feedback. As positive as that all is, it's also a very dynamic process. So as we're bouncing ideas back and forth, I wish we were faster at getting answers and information and everything back to you. So I appreciate your kind of trust in the vision that we have. Let me first respond. I don't know if you can put the overall site plan up. Oh, can somebody that knows how to control things? Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. The question about the dumpster locations, there are kind of in the south corner at the ends of the parking, there are two at each end. There are also two over behind buildings 5 and 6, right near the drive-through side of the buildings. And then there's a final one at the corner of Building 7, we'll call it, all of which are either recessed behind berms or plantings, or we feel like fairly well obscured. There'll also be masonry-clad structures so that what you do see is attractive and in the same architectural materials that are predominantly on the buildings, so they do fit into the context.
Thank you.
The water feature, if I could, that's what made me think about how dynamic it's been, because, you know, here's what's great is we come in with these kind of preconceived notions about a corner plaza and people coming across the streets, and the planners in their vision understanding your city, that's not how the plaza is going to be used. So we were rightfully corrected in looking at it as, let's make it a destination plaza where it's kind of kept and protected, and you can still see activity going on there. So that went from being kind of a more formal fountain, circular geometry to being something a little more organic, a little bit more of a splash pad, protected by raised planters with larger trees for shade and seating that's attached to the planters that protect and kind of embrace this kind of meandering water element that children can play in and parents can sit and watch or play as well. So I think knowing the community, and we're learning about what's appropriate and what ought to be there, is the reason we've kind of gone in that direction. Having the plaza open to businesses that are adjacent to the plaza, another really important thing. And again, in the spirit of how dynamic this is, what Clint brought up about the line of sight that we were so careful about when we first build this, we do need to think about maybe shallowing up that planter so that when this street expands. So I think every one of the items that were considerations or part of the approval process that are conditions, we certainly are in favor of and appreciate. Are there any other architectural or questions my pay grade can answer? Thanks for listening.
Thank you. All right, any discussion from?
I just had like 2 comments, I
Yeah.
think. So if that area is gonna be more of like a splash pad, I would almost take out those 2 midpoint access just to make it, I mean, I have a runner, and so
Yeah.
the less access out onto the street right there would be better.
So maybe we go to let's go to the current design for that corner, if we go to that slide that shows that. There you go.
Just those 2 like right.
Those 2 that are right on the corner.
Just maybe take those out and put planters there. And then I also had a suggestion for the game area is, I don't know how big it is, but if there was room to put a stage in there or room to put a temporary stage, you could have live music there too.
Yeah, great suggestions. Any other thoughts or suggestions? Obviously, that's one of the requirements or what am I trying to say? Conditions of approval was of the 10 that was listed there by the staff, was to work with them on this corner as well. So that's still on the to work with. So
as
Michael.
the commission knows, you expressed a concern about creating an activity or gathering location that would still provide some safety, right? And that's why these raised planter walls came in. But we also want to make sure that this is still inviting pedestrians
Right.
into the center. And so if we completely block that off, I think we're kind of defeating the other kind of element of this project. So I just ask you to consider that we still want to have, like, typically when you're designing plaza spaces, you want to try and accommodate that shortest path of travel. Because if we are simply just blocking that pedestrian access, it's just going to frustrate those who may want to come to the center to begin with. And then it won't create that enlivened space that we were hoping to have. Clint and I were reviewing a number of just kind of general plaza standards, today, and that was one of the issues that we looked at. And we thought that the openings actually facilitated, those kind of natural pedestrian pass through the site. But, so it's a balance, right?
Right.
We want to make sure it's a safe, defensible space, and yet still porous enough that we have easy pedestrian access into it.
Yeah, if you close off the one on Miller Access, you wouldn't have any access into the plaza from that side, but you still have the two off from Main Street. So maybe you can look at consolidating maybe a little bit there, or, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and maybe the water feature just needs to be a little bit more specific on what it is. It may not be a typical splash pad where you just have a huge concrete area with water splashing up, because that's not really conducive to, probably what's going to happen in this multi-tenant, to have a splash pad immediately adjacent to it.
As we mentioned in the work meeting, we certainly are comfortable working with the development team. If you feel like you would like to make a motion and give us direction on that, we can also bring the final iteration of it back to you just to show you what the response is. You can do of the pads that have been proposed to you tonight, and then we've done this a number of times where we kind of have a deferred approval on a portion of the site. So whatever you'd like to do.
I kind of wonder if we just deferred the landscaping, all of it, and then maybe have you address some of those concerns, and those little details can be adjusted, but then a final coming back would make sense to me.
But approve the buildings.
But yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. I
so
don't
they
see
can
any
get going
problem
on
with
that.
buildings.
And
I do think Forrest's idea of the retention pond or detention pond, I can't remember which one it was, looking at how to incorporate that as well into this area.
Yeah, and I don't know if that'd be a part of the next phase or not, or if that has to be done with this phase anyway, right, to have that, the detention pond.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are things that we could work with the applicant on. And so you're saying you want to move forward with the overall site plan, but have the landscaping plan come back to you, including these plaza areas, the one on the screen here, and then the one down on the other corner, to see what we can work on
Yeah.
and create there.
It's kind of what I'm hearing from the,
Yeah.
Which
Is
will
that-
allow them to move forward on the civil engineering.
correct,
Exactly.
Potentially construction.
Yeah.
On the pads and the access points and.
right? Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Any
Yeah, if you
concerns
go
with
to the
that approach?
recommendations, I'm ready to make
Yeah.
a motion.
Yeah, should we get the slide with the recommendations? We'll make a motion, maybe add a fourth, or I guess 11th.
That's why. I
Yeah,
wanted
oh,
to see it.
there you go.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 4.1 with an additional 11th, that all of the landscaping plans will come back for review.
I have a motion by Adam.
A second.
Is that was Forrest, second by Forrest. We'll go ahead and call for a vote with, start with Forrest.
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
and Andrea.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes with those recommendations. Thank you so much for your work, and we're looking forward to seeing more of this as you come forward. Thank you so much.
Can I just ask a quick clarification on that?
Sure.
Did you want that to come back to the commission in this setting, or do you want to do that in a work session?
We can do it in work session, couldn't we?
Work sessions. fine.
Yeah, work session's fine.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with work session?
Work
Okay.
session's good.
Work session. That'd be great. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 4.2, which is a consideration of a special exception to reduce the minimum side yard setback. And I believe Sheldon, he's up there. Here we go.
Good evening, guys. This is a special exception for an accessory structure. Seems to be my specialty lately. So this is out in, this reserves of Sky Ranch. This particular lot is a corner lot. This kind of shows you an idea of the size of the structure, detached structure next to the home itself. I guess, yeah. Again, as I mentioned, it's located at the reserves of Sky Ranch. The zoning's A110. The lot itself is just over a half acre. It's 22,000 square feet. The building he's proposing has a footprint of 2,100 feet, 2,100 square feet, and it's 21 foot 4 at its tallest point. We did issue notices to the neighboring properties. We heard no feedback from any neighbors regarding this request. Again, it's a special exception based on the irregular lot shape as defined in our definitions. What the applicant is proposing here is a 2,100 square foot garage located in the side yard of his home. Due to the lot shape, moving that structure to the other side wouldn't make it very accessible for vehicular access and et cetera. And then based, again, on our definitions on how we define side yards, he basically has no rear yard in that particular location. So per ordinance, if it's located in the side yard, that structure has to meet the same setbacks as the primary structure. In this case, it is 7.5 feet. What the applicant is requesting, he can reduce that to 4 feet. Again, you can notice here that there is actually some space between the structure and his home, about 7.5 feet or so. So there is a little wiggle room to move close to the home if Planning Commission prefers. Again, staff was just concerned, and same with the applicant, is just kind of clustering those structures so close together. What he's proposing, per ordinance, any street-facing side of the structure has to be built with similar materials and colors as the primary structure. We do have an alternate list of materials they can use, which the applicant has chosen. The majority of the structure will be either with fiberboard or stucco. The lower portion will be wainscot. His bay doors will obviously have windows, so it's, the front will be a quite nice, pleasant structure to look at. The remaining portions of the building will be steel construction. Just kind of looking over the regulations based on the applicant's lot size, based on how we define the overall allotted coverage for detached structures is based off the size of the rear yard. And in his case, he could technically build the structure up to 3,500 square feet. He's proposing a 2,100 square foot structure. Again, I guess there's some typos here, my fault here. So based on his side yard setbacks at 7.5 feet, based, I guess, on how we define the side yard, he's required to have that 7.5 setback on both the side and rear of the structure, because that all falls into the side yard. In the case if this structure was actually placed, if it was a regular shaped lot and that structure was placed into the rear of that lot in the same setbacks at 4 feet, what he's proposing, that would meet our ordinance. So he's not asking for actually any exception to height or anything, outside of the ordinance. Again, the finished materials will be a combination of fiberboard, brick and stone wainscot. Again, looking at some considerations, the garage placement is typical in this area, and then particularly in the reserves at Sky Ranch, there's a lot of large lots. We have a lot of large accessory structures going in here. They're typically placed in those back corners. Again, staff didn't find any adverse or effects or impacts on neighboring property from this proposed structure and its location. Based on those findings, staff does recommend approval with these following conditions. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for Sheldon?
The applicant is here if you have questions for the applicant as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and let the applicant come forward. If there's any more information you want to provide that we need to be aware of, welcome that. Go ahead and state your name as well for the record.
Thank you. My name is Blake Cranbiel. Grateful for all of Sheldon's help. Appreciate all his effort and time. And thank you for helping me out here. Yeah, so basically I set the home as far as I could to the north side, leaving room for RV parking. We got a couple big fifth wheels. So doing that and then keeping the shop as far as I can. Space is limited with the irregular pie shape. So mainly just being able to get around and stay in. It gets crowded towards the home. So being able to back them in and create room for us is the main goal.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Thanks, Blake. Any discussion from Planning Commission on this item?
This
Any
one's
thoughts?
like encroaching the least amount just because it's just on one corner, so
And I was noticing the backyard neighbor too is already established and set back quite a ways, and they're meeting the setback as well.
I don't think I have a question on the setback. On the drawings themselves, the elevations, out of curiosity, is 12.2 a Harriman approved pitch?
There you go.
doesn't it have to match
So
the
when it
house?
comes to regulating single family detached, we don't have any regulations on roof pitches. We do ask that the pitch is similar to the house itself. The house does
The
have,
house is that flat?
it's not that, it does have different I guess, pitches on the house itself. I guess to add that pitch to the house obviously would make that structure much
Even
taller
taller,
as well.
yeah.
And that's what we're trying to avoid, increasing the height of that structure.
So it's a metal roof?
So snow wouldn't be a problem sliding off. No, I kind of agree, the flatter roof, so it's not as tall. I don't know if we can maybe just go to those, so you can see those elevation views, just, there you go.
I know it's functional. That'd be my only comment, is the pitch of that roof.
Any other concerns with, or thoughts? I guess I don't have a concern with the pitch, as long as, yeah, you're gonna get your snow being able to slide off that, which most likely will with the metal roof.
So is the east elevation
That's the front facing.
front-facing
Yeah,
elevation?
the east elevation would be the front of the structure.
So does the current home have cementous fiberboard or stucco as their primary finish?
But I believe it's mainly fiberboard with some brick wainscoting on there.
So it does match. Okay, any other thoughts?
And the staff's report still says that they have to match, so even if
They
the
have to
drawing,
match.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true, the two recommendations did state that.
I am good.
Any other concerns, if we make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 4.2 with staff's 2 recommendations.
And we have a motion by Adam,
I'll second it.
and second by Daryl. Call for a vote, we'll start with Andrea.
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Forrest?
Yes.
All right, that motion passes, so thank you very much. All right, any comments from the commission on this? Any other discussion items? Okay. Future meetings next week. City Council, it's hard to believe that September's over. And then October 4th, in 2 weeks, we'll have Planning Commission. A week after that, City Council. We'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Adam, all in favor?